Hey guys, this is Jeff Stanek with Figured Out Baseball. We've got a little bit of a unique Figured Out Baseball podcast today, different than any we've ever done before. We are being joined on the program today by Tyler Pill. Tyler is a former major league right-handed pitcher and / minor league outfielder, and pretty excited to have him on to get a perspective of a guy that's been a high draft pick, gone through the minor leagues, made it to the major leagues, had some ups and downs, and just kind of an interesting perspective. I'll give you a bit of a background on Tyler before we jump into questions with him so you can get to know him a little bit and kind of his story, at least on paper. He's a Covina, California native. He went to Cal State Fullerton. Before he went to Fullerton, he was a 38th round draft pick out of high school by the Colorado Rockies. Once he got to Cal State Fullerton, he immediately, jumped on the radar for a lot of teams and across the country. He was a freshman All-American as he set the school record, the freshman school record for wins and shutouts. He was also named the conference co-pitcher of the year as a freshman with a teammate, if I'm not mistaken. Out of Cal State Fullerton, he was a 2011 fourth-round draft pick by the New York Mets. Through the minor league system, in 2016, he was a midseason All-Star in the AA Eastern League. He made his major league debut the next year in 2017. Throughout 2017 with the Mets, he made 7 appearances through 22 total innings. He got the call on May 26th that he was getting called up for the first time. He was sent back down on June 11th. He was recalled again later in June, was sent down, was recalled later again in July, was sent down, was recalled later again in October, which I'm sure was a roller coaster emotionally through that time, and I'm sure we'll get into that with the podcast. That was in 2017. After the 2017 season, Tyler elected free agency. He signed in the offseason with the Diamondbacks. In April of 2018, he was traded to the Dodgers. He was through 2018, he was on the DL a couple times, ended up spending the entire 2018 season in the minor leagues with the Dodgers. That offseason, he elected free agency again, signed the next year with the Rangers as a two-way player, as a right-handed pitcher and an outfielder, which is also something that's really unique and maybe becoming a little more popular now than it was even 10, 15 years ago to have a dual player. Then partway through spring training of 2019, the Rangers converted Tyler to just an outfielder. They wanted him to focus on just being an outfielder. Although toward the end of spring training, he injured his groin, missed some time there. Once he came back, his second game that he came back, he got hit in the wrist, broke a bone in his wrist, missed some time again. Once he did come back, he hit .233 in AAA. A guy that had not hit consistently in the minor leagues, thrown into AAA, hit .233, pretty respectable, although he was released in July of 2019. Although, if I look back, he is a .301 career minor league hitter in 206 at-bats. Pretty impressive for a guy that doesn't hit very often down there. And Tyler is currently the undergrad assistant back at Cal State Fullerton as he's finishing his degree. Tyler, I really appreciate you spending some time with us here today on the podcast, and I'm pretty pumped to kind of get into this stuff with you.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this, and hopefully I could, give you some content and some good info.
This kind of stuff is really intriguing to me. I'm someone who I read a good bit about, and especially as a coach, read a good bit about the mental game, and I can't. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to put yourself in the position that you were in, the situation that you were in, just being up and down, and then after you make your major league debut, spending the next year, the whole year in the minor leagues, and then the next year being converted to an outfielder. Like, there had to just been a lot going on there. Let's start out. There are so many things just to get into, even from your bio, from what I see there, and I'm sure there's a lot more under the surface. But let's just start out in 2017. You started the year, I'm assuming, in AAA. I probably should have wrote that down, but I'm assuming you started the year in AAA, and you get called up on May 6th. First of all, May 26th. First of all, what was it like for you to get the call? How did that happen? And what was it like for you once you got that call that you were going to the big leagues?
All right, so this is going to be a little bit longer of an answer to your question probably than you'd think. So I did not start in AAA that year. I started in AA Binghamton again. So that would be in parts of 5 years for me in the Eastern League, which is when I was told that. You can imagine in spring training how upset and disappointed I was. And I guess to answer the main answer to your question was it made it all feel that much better. Started in AA, down in the dumps, They gave me the first opener of the season, which was cool. But like I said, being there for 5 years, and originally in spring training, I had contemplating on retiring because of how many years I'd been in AA. Because I was at the point where, I'm married. I've been married, and she's been waiting on me all these years for playing minor league baseball, not getting paid much. It's kind of like I'm getting older, see younger guys coming through, and it's at that point where I was willing to decide, I got to move on and be with my family and start to make money for my family. So anyway, I was contemplating retiring, break spring training. Actually, the scouting director or player development guy actually told me to prove him wrong that year before we broke. So we left, went to Binghamton, threw the first game, and my track record usually was my first outing. I'd give up like 6 runs in the first couple innings of the year and give my, first month ERA in like a 12 spot or something. For whatever reason, whether it be the cold weather or I wasn't throwing well by then or wasn't locked in, I don't know. For whatever reason, I'd always start the year with a 12 after the first month. So I'm throwing in New Hampshire. I have bases loaded in the first inning, no outs, and I'm thinking, here we go again. This is going to be a repeat. And I proceed to throw 3 pitches and give up 3 missiles, one of the shortstop, one of the second baseman, one of the outfielder. Get out of the inning, no runs. Then throw 5 innings, no runs, and then come back on 4 days rest because young prospects hurt. I'm like, sure, I'll do it. Throw 4 days rest, throw 5 innings, no runs. Some guy goes down in AAA. I get promoted. Throw there. Basically, I think it ended up turning into 33 innings of scoreless baseball from me to get promoted on May the 26th. So that in itself was a roller coaster. So the feeling of being told I was going to pitch and throw at PNC and meet the team there in Pittsburgh was a really dream come true. Even more than what I had expected to be. I still think I was sleeping in the stands during a PCL 6-hour game because the score was 14-12 in like the 4th inning. Those games, they go forever. They're football score games. But that feeling was undescribable and unimaginable.
Who told you? Who was the one that told you got the call?
My manager that I had had for years in AA, Pedro Lopez. He called me in and said, hey, you've been throwing well, but they just sent their so-and-so down. He's obviously making this up. So we're going to have to send you back down to Binghamton. I'm sorry.
That's brutal.
And then he lets a couple minutes pass and says, just kidding, you're going to the other New York, you're going to the other New York team, which is actually meeting in Pittsburgh. I was like, thanks. Thanks for that.
Oh, my gosh. Hard to imagine that. You'd think with somebody with your background and history, he would have done it in a little bit of a nicer way than that, but still probably pretty amazing. Who was the first person you called after you found out?
My wife, and then my parents. My wife didn't answer because she was actually in the shower, so my parents got the first news.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did anybody get to come see you in Pittsburgh?
Yes. My wife and my parents. My brother couldn't make it, but they all came out to Pittsburgh, saw my debut, which was as a reliever, and then just my wife made it to the New York start, I believe, yes, against the Brewers.
And who was your manager that year, did you say?
Pedro Lopez.
Pedro Lopez.
I believe he's still at the Mets.
Okay. It's a pretty cool scenario and something I'm sure you'll never forget. But then after you get called up, you got the call, at least from what I saw, you got the call on May 26th. You got sent back down on June 11th, recalled later in June,
sent back down, recalled in July, sent back down, and then recalled in early October as an October. Well, what was happening on October? You got called up on October 2nd, I saw, or was that just something at the end of the season that was a transaction on paper?
That was an injury, probably an injury transaction. They probably retroactive the date because I got hurt on my last outing in San Diego.
Okay.
There's probably something wrong then.
So what was it like just for you that season? You got your first call, and then you go back down and get called up and get sent back down. Because it was your first year, was it not that big of a deal to kind of get sent back down and get called up several times? Or, what was it like just for you mentally to have to go through that throughout the year where you're kind of shuttling back and forth?
That year, I had a very good outlook on it mentally. And I think falling back to the beginning of the season in spring training, I was like, whenever I got sat down, I reverted back to, hey, I was going to retire. Like I told my wife and family I was going to give it a month and see where this season took me. And if it started off bad or anything went bad, I was just going to kind of say, hey, I got to move on. So I think that whole scenario or that situation kept in perspective. So whenever I got sent down, I was like, well, I could have been not playing right now. So I guess that's how I kept a very positive outlook on any situation that was thrown my way for that year and any coming year, actually.
Was it the same in 2018? I know you had some injuries, you spent some time on the disabled list, but was that kind of the outlook that you tried to keep in 2018 as well when you spent the whole year in the minor leagues after being in the big leagues? I can't imagine was it a similar feeling to being sent back down to AA? Like, I've been there, I know I can be there, I know I can compete at that level, but being in AAA all year, was it the same sort of feeling as being in AA, or was that sort of mentality you had in 2017 where I could not be pitching at all?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it did suck. Thinking about the idea of just, like being there in the big leagues and then being back in AAA, and then actually in 18, I had one start in AA because they were shifting the rotation up in AAA. But yeah, that whole thought process kind of kept me grounded and where I needed to be. And then, like, especially in last year in 19 when I hit and then got hurt both those times, I was like, well, if I think back to 17, I could just be sitting on the couch and, doing something else. But I'm blessed enough to keep playing and to have a span of luck to help me continue to play.
Now, let's go to 2019. In the offseason between 18 and 19, you signed with the Rangers. Did they originally talk to you? I know that you had been you've been talked to throughout your career at different times about hitting, whether or not it was just, I don't think it was exclusive hitting at that point, but just you had the Mets, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, talk to you about taking some more regular bats, maybe in a DH capacity, or maybe it was the Dodgers or one of those teams. I know you've had conversations about that in the minor leagues. What was the conversation like when you signed with the Rangers to be a legitimate two-way player?
So the Rangers originally approached me with the idea. I don't know where that idea came from. It might have been from one of my guys I played with last year. Maybe he pitched it because he's now coaching with the Rangers, so he might have pitched it to one of their scouting directors or player development guys and said, hey, let's try to have him do both. He puts up good at bats and has put up good at bats when he's hit as a pitcher. So what's the worst that can happen? And then I was like, yeah, I kind of said, let's run with it and see where it goes.
So then you get into spring training. You're going into it as a two-way player, and then at some point in spring training, fairly early on, they said, hey, what do you think about just giving it a go as an outfielder? What was that like for you? I mean, was it something you were excited about? Was it kind of a blow to you to say, like, hey, you're not going to pitch anymore, or was it something kind of that was new enough that you were able to get excited about that? How was that conversation for you personally?
That one was tough because I knew if I didn't throw that year, odds are, like, the percentages of me, in my opinion, of throwing the next year, which would be this year, were smaller than if I, had thrown a little bit. during that year. So when they said, hey, go full bore outfielder, I knew it's potentially closing, the chapter or book on pitching completely, or it could have been. So I had to kind of frame that one a little different mentally. I kind of just said, maybe we're opening a new chapter hitting from the hitting standpoint, and maybe we'll run with that for a while. But I try to keep things positive, and then circle back with, hey, I'm also just blessed to have this opportunity to be hitting instead of not even being here right now. So I tried to always circle back to the same thought to keep me in the positive.
It was a little bit strange to me just to look at the timeline of things and see that you had a couple injuries. You also, you had never taken more than 20-some at-bats in a season in the minor leagues. You hadn't, seriously worked on it or taken, serious batting practice since college, and all of a sudden you're in AAA, and, you hit 233, with respectable numbers all around, and then we're released in July. And that part was all I can do is look at a box score or look at your stat line for the year. But it seemed like, you're holding your own in AAA for a guy who hadn't hit, you were drafted in 2011. You hadn't really seriously hit since 2011. It's 2019, and you're in AAA. I know that some things happened. I don't know exactly, what things, but it would have made a lot more sense, for you to start at maybe high A or whatever and kind of work your way up. But, to be thrown into that level of pitching and hit fairly respectably, to be released was a little bit, it was just like the timing of it was funny to me, being released in July. What was that? How was that conversation? What did the conversation sound like when you were in there and they kind of told you this is it for you? It didn't seem like you got, I guess, as much of a shot as, from the outside it seems like maybe you should have there.
Yeah, that was, I think, I'd like to think, if I try and break it down, that it was because of the younger prospects. They had a lot of young outfield prospects that were dinged up. So I'd gotten hurt in spring training, and then I came back, like you said, and got hurt again. And during that time, all these young prospects in AAA and AA were getting dinged up and getting sent down to Arizona where I was. And I was like, oh, man, maybe I'll get shipped out to Nashville and play there for a little bit and see how it goes, which that ended up happening. And then I actually was hitting closer to 280 with a couple homers. And then sure enough, the younger guys get healthier, and then I start, whether that was the reason or not, I started failing a little more. And then there's 5, 6 outfielders or potential outfielders, those infielders that could play outfield too. All those young guys were back healthy, and they pretty much said, hey, we don't have room. We got a lot of guys we want to see, and that was pretty much the gist of it, what they told me in that conversation.
Do you have any regrets from anything that went on at this point? I asked you before the podcast if you plan on playing in 2020, and you said you don't. You're for better or for worse, you're not going to try to play this year. Do you have any regrets from how anything happened or how anything transpired, or if you had to go back and do anything again, would you do anything differently to maybe that you think maybe could have taken your career on a different path?
This might sound a little weird, but not throw through as many injuries or pain. And I think that might have potentially helped me, go around some injuries that I had from a throwing perspective and a pitching perspective. I think I tried to suck up a little too much, and it leaked into an injury later on down the line, and I think that potentially could have shortened my throwing career. Yeah.
So there were times when you had some pain, you decided to throw through it, eventually turned into an injury that kept you on the disabled list. What would you have done? Just kind of gone, and this is something that I think young pitchers need to hear, especially, pitching is a thing that I didn't throw after college. I didn't pitch after college, but I know that you listen to pitchers and you listen to guys on MLB Network or whatever, and they just say, I never felt good, but there's a difference between I guess you got to kind of know what level of pain that you should pitch through and what you shouldn't. What would you say to a guy who is maybe in a similar situation to you as a 25, 26-year-old, or even a guy that's in college, as far as throwing through pain? Or like if you were coaching at that level, what would you encourage guys to do as far as when they pitch and when they said, hey, I need to shut it down or just skip a start or whatever?
Honestly, I would say get with your trainer, especially if he's a good one. He's not going to throw you under the bus, and identify the bad spots of pain. Know that not every pain's bad, obviously, but there are certain areas that you shouldn't really be trying to force your way through, and you should get them checked out. And also a big factor is when something does bother you, cut down on the, not the non-important throws, but the less, just like all the like picks or like those throws, like the picks or the PFPs, just cut down as many non-impactful throws. I'm not saying those aren't important, but like just try and save your bullets for the mound and the important part of your pitching, like performance, or like what am I trying to say? Just
I understand the pitches that you've got to feel your best when you're on the mound, and if you're not feeling your best on the mound, it's not going to help you to make a bunch of non-essential throws during the week.
Yes, don't wear your arm out on like 100 throws and catch play, and then expect to go throw 50 pitch bullpen and expect to feel good. Like cut some throws down, and if there's like PFPs after, make sure you're very aware of what you're doing and not try to throw through anything that's in the bad spots in your shoulder or your elbow. That's, I guess, the main info I'd give to somebody now.
Did you throw through those times because you didn't want to miss time on the mound, because you knew how precious that was? Did you do that because you wanted your coaches to look at you as a bulldog type of guy he's going to pitch when he's 100% and he's going to pitch when he's 80%, and we can rely on him to be on the mound? What was the reason that you decided to throw through some of those times when you weren't feeling your best?
So both of those, the mentality obviously in a lot of times in college is to throw through it, like be for the team. Like you got to compete no matter what. Like pain is just a barrier you could overcome. And I think that's to an extent. And those were two main reasons why I'd keep throwing. And the other one was, especially in pro ball, is like, what good is a hurt player? It's kind of like, oh, you're hurt. What's the point of you? I'm going to forget about you. Like, I never wanted to be not in the talk. So I guess, yeah, if you're throwing through something, you might think you're still in the mix when people were talking about, like, promotions or, like oh, yeah, he's doing well. He's still throwing, instead of he's hurt, he's on the bench, he's out on the sideline. But if I think about it now, it's like, what's the point of throwing with half my effort or half my potential than to sit out and wait until when I'm actually healthy and I could be at full bore, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And as coaches, for better or for worse, and it's not that you're trying to penalize the guy, but when a guy's hurt, you do kind of forget about him, whether it's college or pro ball. Your mind is actively thinking about the guys on the field, and when a guy is not on the field, it's just kind of a natural thing that he just doesn't get as much time on your mind as the guy that's on the field. So I think that there's something to that, but there's also something to knowing your own body and knowing when it's time to take a step back or like you said, just to cut down on the non-essential throws during the week if you're tender or you feel like you're not bouncing back as quickly as you should, or not feeling as well as you should. How much of a transition was it for you to go from college, where you've got a 7-day schedule, to pro ball, where you're on a 5-day schedule? I always thought that was probably something that was difficult for a pitcher to kind of get used to, where you've got 4 days between starts instead of 6. But what was that transition like for you, going from college to pro ball?
Well, I think that's where, tying into the last question, like you really start to have to determine and realize what throws are important. So, going from 7 to 5, you're like, okay, well, my bullpen work is most important. My game work's important. My catch play is important. But like if you get all those areas and your arm's still hanging a little bit, not bouncing back like it should, that's when you start to figure out what your throwing program needs and what works for your body. I guess from going from a 7-day rotation to a 5-day, like you really get to figure out what works for your body and what you need, and as an individual, like what will take you to the next level.
What's life like in the minor leagues? I was just kind of thinking as you were talking about that question, thinking about the training staffs in the minor leagues and kind of how they are compared to what you have in college. At Cal State Fullerton, you guys are a major baseball program. What's it like going from college to the minor leagues? Did you feel like you had better commodities and better help, better trainers, better this, better that, better facilities, or did it almost get a little bit worse going from a big-time college program like that to going to like the low levels of the minor leagues?
Honestly, over time, I would say minor league commodities have improved massively. But from going to college to pro ball, you have more trainers obviously in spring training. They're very good. They're very I'd say obviously they're better in pro ball. They have a lot of people they have to watch over though. So if you don't speak up, then if something's bothering you, then obviously you're just going to be forgotten in that regards too. So they're very busy. I guess what I'm trying to say, they're way more busy than the college baseball trainer. Because here we just have one trainer for baseball, and he was a professional ball trainer. So he's on top of everything, player-wise, just structurally, throwing program. Like he's very good. And the higher you get
speaking about the guy at Fullerton.
Yes, sorry. And in pro ball, the higher you go up, all the commodities, they get better. All the buses you travel in. At AAA, you're in the plane, obviously. The trainers are better. They know more. They've just been around. They're more experienced. Food's better now. And with the Dodgers, they're all organic. They're all whole foods.
Really?
It's crazy. Yeah. We go on the road, and we're expecting some, poor spread, and out pops Whole Foods, catered.
You see stuff on social media, especially from guys that had played that don't play anymore, just about how you live on peanut butter and jelly on the road and throughout the minor leagues, and just about how the bus trips. Like, how much of that stuff was your experience, and how much of your experience was that this really isn't so bad as far as travel and food and things like that?
So the food, my first away series in 2011, the spread was one loaf of bread. It was Wonder Bread. One container of fluff, which is like a marshmallow, not liquid form of marshmallow, some weird.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Just melted marshmallow in a jar. And then a thing of Pop-Tarts and one thing of jelly? I don't even think there was peanut butter. It was the most bizarre spread before a game that you're giving professional athletes. So yeah, when you see guys talking about the PB&J diet in the minor leagues, it's true. It's exactly what's going on. But now, obviously, it's gotten better, and it differs from each organization.
Instead of the PB&J diet, we could talk about the Wonder Bread and marshmallow fluff diet.
or the fluff. I think Nutella came the next month. So it was Nutella and fluff.
That doesn't seem like the best thing to give guys before a game to really get the energy level up.
Yeah, then you got honey. Honey came in high, I think, along with that spread. But yeah, from performance, what if you're giving professional athletes that type of spread? It's just not a good combo.
There's a lot going on in the news right now, if you follow baseball news, about the minor leagues and about the potential of cutting a bunch of minor league teams to help the quality of pay and probably the quality of what you're talking about for the minor league teams that do exist. And there's a lot about that in the news, and I won't give my opinion on it without being there, without having experienced things. First, talk about part of what, well, at least the narrative for that is that they want to make the conditions better for minor league players. And you spoke about the pay, or I'm sorry, you spoke about the food, but I wanted to ask you about the pay. Do you mind telling us what pay is like in the minor leagues, for different levels? Obviously, some guys get bigger bonuses, some guys get tiny bonuses, but after the bonuses are gone, what is the pay like for different levels of minor leaguers?
It is roughly $1,200 a month before taxes, I want to say. So it's about $600 a paycheck.
Is that just during the season?
That's just during the season. Spring training, you're not paid. They will give you food in spring training. They'll give you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or they'll give you $20 for dinner. But that's only for season. And then you gotta remember, you gotta pay for rent, which a lot of these places aren't even, they're gonna charge you a good amount. They're in the center of town. And so if I'm playing in Binghamton, the rent there, the stadium's right in the middle of the city, and I don't have my car, being from California, because I don't want to spend $1,200 to ship it out there. And so I'm gonna have no car, so I'm gonna try and live closer to the field, and that rent jumps up. So you're talking at least $800 a month. So that's half your paycheck, and then you got to pay for clubhouse dues, which are ranging from 11 to 15 a day, based off which level you play at. And clubhouse dues, if no one knows what those are, that's laundry, pregame and postgame spread. I think that's it. They're just for the clubhouse person to upkeep the clubhouse and clean your clothes and give you food, which they're trying to make money too. So they're trying to spread that money out. So a lot of the times you'll get chicken nuggets or PB&J. So they're trying to pocket a lot of money. So it's all it's an interesting situation. So when they're trying to cut teams, I understand it. I get it. They're trying to make the environment better for minor leaguers. And I think what they're saying by cutting teams is, hey, there has to be some take too. So we're going to give you some more money, but we got to take some teams away in order to pay you more.
But it's tough to hear. We talked about this before we started the podcast, but I live in a town where there's a AA team, and thinking about that team being taken away, whether or not the team here is, but anywhere, anybody that lives in a minor league town, it's just sad to hear about, because my own perspective is, number one, it's fun to go to. It's fun to go to minor league games. They do a reasonably good job of providing some entertainment during the games. Watching a AA team, you get to see guys that are going to be in the big leagues in a year or two. In a lot of scenarios, both guys on your own team and guys that are visiting. But it's ultra affordable to go to a game. I also, I live a couple hours away from Pittsburgh. My dad and I and other family members try to go to Pirate games throughout the year, but it's so expensive to go to a game, and that's 2 hours away. You're getting home at 1 o'clock in the morning, got to go to work the next day. I have little kids at home that very well may wake up in the middle of the night, and there's a lot to it. The AA team in town is 15 minutes away. It's so much cheaper to go. You get to see good baseball. The kids are entertained. What's going on. Food is affordable, and it's just sad that affordable, high quality baseball is going to be taken away from a lot of people. To me, in a time when you need to grow the interest in the game, because baseball has fallen behind football and basketball. Mm-hmm. It to me is it's a tough pill to swallow. thinking about dropping minor league teams because I think minor league baseball is so good. It's so good for the game. And it's so good for so many communities. And it's just a real shame to know that that might be taken away from so many people. And let me ask you this perspective as a minor league player, former minor league player. How would you take it if you were still playing and you were fighting for a spot, on a team, and all of a sudden they're dropping, 40 teams or whatever it's going to be, 40 teams times however many guys are on a roster? There's going to be a lot of guys without jobs this year. What do you think that is like, or what would your perspective be if you were still playing, being a minor league guy, knowing that so many guys are going to be without jobs next year?
I don't really know how I'd take that. It's just, I guess that would be an interesting topic to tackle, or a situation to tackle if like that happened. Like, just so you're basically saying if the team gets cut, 30-some players, or they lose their jobs, right?
I mean, that's how I understand it, unless there's something that I'm missing. Just from reading everything, it seems like there are, 3 or 4 coaches per team, as well as 30 guys on a team, or 25 guys, or whatever it is, that are going to be without jobs, and as well as the people that are going to miss out on being able to go and watch a good baseball game for a really affordable price. It's just, I don't know, it's tough for me. I know that there are a lot of guys out there that aren't going to get opportunities that should have, and people might say, well, those guys weren't going to make it anyway. Well, maybe they wouldn't have, but maybe there's a guy out there that's, even if a couple of guys had a shot, and all of a sudden they find themselves without jobs. To me, that's just it's a difficult thing. It's something I don't think is a very good thing for the game at a time when the major leagues should be trying to grow the interest, because interest is waning in baseball.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. It'd be it's tough. It's not a situation I would like either, because I got a lot of friends still playing, and that would suck to just wake up one morning and see all of them got released just because they needed, to cut teams and cut players. Yeah.
And I would have to think that there'll be some guys that are in, single A or whatever that just aren't. They were, 35th round picks that'll be cut. But there'll also probably be some 28, 29-year-old guys that are sitting in AAA that will also get the axe because, they have to cut somebody. They're not going to cut the high prospects. A guy that's in his second year, at least you can dream on some things that he's done. But the guy that's 28, 29 years old, and I'll give you this is probably a bad example because he's maybe someone, I guess it's not maybe a great comparison, but a guy like Eric Kratz, who didn't make his big league debut until he was 30 years old, and then has had a pretty decent major league career. I just picture guys like him that are 28, 29, have never been in the big leagues, and are fighting through the minor leagues, trying to do anything they can, and they're going to find themselves without jobs. And that's the person that I picture that this will be a tough thing for them. But anyway, sorry to kind of go off on that tangent, but I think it's something that's, as someone that's been through it, something that it's worth talking about. But I guess if it improves minor pay for guys, maybe that's something to that. So $1,200 a month, was what you started out. Does it get any better as you move up to like AAA, AA, AAA? Is the pay any better at those levels?
It goes up maybe 100 or 2 each level. AAA, it's a little different just because, you're dealing with older guys that they either have, if they have a little bit of a big league time and they've signed like a free agent contract, they'll get paid a lot more. So that's why you see a lot of numbers that fluctuate about like AAA. It's like for most guys that are on that initial 6-7 year contract, they're getting paid maybe, I don't want to say above $1,500 a month. I want to say below that, but yeah. So if you have any big league time though, that free agent contract you sign after you get released or elect free agency, it'll jump up to like 10 to 20,000 a month. So that's a very big increase, but that's also if you've made it to the big leagues. Other than that, like just a minor league free agent contract without any big league time is still not a whole lot better.
So, I mean, by the time when you were with the Mets, you had not been a free agent yet. You had not made it to the big leagues yet. And obviously you weren't in AAA for that long. But when you got to AAA for the first time, it was still in the ballpark of $1,500 a month. That's like shockingly low.
Yes.
Shockingly
Yeah.
low.
And that was it was in Vegas, so we found a little bit of a decent place to stay, like way far away from the Strip when I was in AAA. Also, being on the West Coast, that helped because I had my car. But
I can imagine. Well, then, just to kind of go back to your career, you became a 2A player with the Rangers. Just curious, were you a potential draft out of Fullerton as an outfielder? You know, if like you had decided, if you had told teams I want to hit, I don't want to pitch at the next level, had you gotten any interest there, or do you think you would have potentially been a draft out of there as an outfielder?
I think I would have. I know I had a team like that told me they're interested in me being an outfielder. I know a couple teams said, "What would you rather be drafted as?" But obviously, I didn't get there, so I could just speculate as much as I want. I could say, "Oh, I could have been a fifth rounder in the outfield," but it's all speculation. But I know some teams were, I guess, interested in me playing outfield for them.
I think it's just a cool thing that you got a chance to play the outfield after that long. Most guys don't ever get that chance, so you figured there was some draft interest there as a college outfielder. But I just wanted to see what the perspective is. I think if there's a couple teams interested, you probably would have had a shot there. What was more fun for you? We'll say in college, when you were good at both and you played both regularly, did you enjoy pitching or hitting more?
I like to say whatever I was doing better at the time, but I always loved hitting. Outfield, I feel like I still have a little pitcher in me, and what I mean by that is I'll get lost sometimes on those like out of range balls and look bad a little bit. But I had a couple of those last year. It was kind of bad. But yeah, I really loved hitting. I really loved pitching, especially when I got further on in my career. I really felt that, which obviously made me, I thought, the tribute to my success in 2017 was me having to break down hitters per swing and, before I face them and, the games previous to my start, and just trying to pick them apart, playing that mental chess game. I love that about starting pitching, trying to hold pitches back until like the fifth inning. If I could go that far, obviously, depending on how they're seeing me that day. But that's what I loved about pitching. And hitting, you got a little bit of it too, but you're also swinging a bat and trying to hit a ball as hard as you could. So there's not much you could say negatively about that. To answer your question equally, them both equally.
Going through the minor leagues, as someone that goes to watch minor league games, sometimes it's people that are interested in their big league club or whatever. They only look at prospects and just everybody in the minor leagues like who they are on paper. They look at them as they are, what their numbers are, and it's hard to figure. I think people lose perspective that these are actual people that have actual families and that have actual things going on in their life besides what's happening on the field. With yourself and with the guys that you played around, how much was a factor, as far as the success you were having, just with the things that were happening off the field? For you were married when you were still playing. What was it? What's it like? What do people not know about what minor leaguers go through as far as just having a personal life in addition to what's happening on the field? What do people, the average person, what does the average person not know about that process and about how much that can affect what's happening to you on the field?
I think what a lot of people don't know, which is actually kind of surprising and alarming to me, is that we play pretty much every day. We actually have less off days than the major league teams. It's like maybe one, sometimes two a month. And that's a big part of it right there, and how much impact that has on your body, like how much time you have to talk to loved ones, and you're never in the same city for longer than a week. You might be lucky and have 2 homestands, which turns into 7 days or 8 days. But other than that, like 3 on the road, like I guess for an example, last year was like 4 in Reno, 3 in Tacoma, then we flew back to Nashville for 4, then like to New Orleans for 3. Like, I don't think people understand that. And so when fans yell out things that I guess they don't understand, like, how are you doing so bad? Well, maybe the dude's got some stuff going on in his family, like maybe he wasn't able to talk to his wife and his kid for like the past 2 days because he's been on the road and traveling and been on a plane or at the field, because some managers say, hey, don't be on your phone at the field while you're there from 2 to 11 sometimes, especially in the PCL, sometimes 12 because you got football games going on. We had one series, this is getting off topic, but there was one series where the score, it was 4 games, it was like 24-21. This was in Las Vegas. It was Fresno versus Las Vegas. The first game was 21-24. The second game was 26-22, I think. Third game was 1-0. But then the fourth game jumped up to 19-16.
Wow.
And that's a whole other, the PCL, the Pacific Coast League is a monster. But anyway, circling back to what you had mentioned, perfect example is this buddy named Greg Peavy. The dude, we spent so many years together playing with each other. He's a pitcher. He's in Double-A with me. And he always struggled. He had some struggles whenever he went to Triple-A. But this year in particular, he was throwing very well. Guy goes down to Triple-A. They call him out. We're in Binghamton. His family's driving from Washington to meet us up in Akron, Ohio. On the road, they're driving. So he's pumped. He gets a call late in like 4 a.m. or something, says, hey, we got to get you on a plane. You got to make a spot start at 1 p.m. in Fresno Pacific time. This is 4 a.m. Eastern time. His family's going to meet him in Akron, Ohio, which we were about to bus to. He gets a call, tell him, hey, you got to meet the team in Fresno. You're throwing at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Immediately hops on a plane. I think he lands at, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Jumps in the game. Obviously, his family's driving to Akron. They turn around to try and drive to Fresno. So they're going to Akron, Ohio. They're trying to drive back to Fresno to meet him. Hopefully, the team stays there because it was the first game of a series of 4. Makes the outing. Does really bad. So that just adds on top of this whole family situation. They send him back immediately. His family basically does a big circle in the middle of the U.S. and then drives back to Washington while he's flying back to Akron, Ohio.
That's incredible.
So I guess the moral of that story is, you, as a minor league player, you're always on the road, you're always moving around, and you don't ever know what the next thing is. You're never really told, hey, you're going to make a spot start, we're going to send you right back. It's, hey, you're going to make a spot start, fly across the country, and we don't really know if you're going to stay or not.
Tell your family just to be on hold.
yeah. The same guy was, poor guy, because he's from Washington. We had spring training in Florida. His son was being born, middle of spring training. They gave him, I think, 2 days to fly to Washington to see, his kid and his wife or his child, and then come back. But he had to be back within 2 days. Well, that flying time isn't factored in, so it was like a day of flying time almost.
Wow.
He didn't see his family very much.
That kind of thing, as a person that left college baseball to be around family more, it's hard to imagine. It's just, I know that the end game of making it, being in the big leagues and the kind of money you can make there, and just all if you really make it, if you ultimately make it, there's such a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But stuff like that, to hear that stuff, Tyler, is like, I don't know how guys do it. I really don't know, especially you can see how the first round pick did it, and how he goes through things, but like the 25th round pick who's just freaking grinding and struggling and nothing is easy. Like that kind of stuff is it's amazing what guys go through for $1,200 a month, 6 months out of the year. It's just incredible. It's incredible what guys go through. And although you are playing a game and that part of it is fun sometimes, not all the time, it's just incredible what guys go through, especially when you hear stories like that.
Actually, to elaborate on that. Yeah, it's fun when you're doing well, but when you're not, it's like you could also get released at any given time. So it's like, that's an added stress right there. You could, like, especially if you're not a high-end pick, like I was very fortunate to be drafted in the 4th round and get a little bit of a cushion to help, sustain me through the years. But the guys that sign for, like, nothing, I could only imagine what goes through their head. Like, I have a lot of friends that, they had a bad month, and they're like, man, I'm going to get released. Like, and then what am I going to do? And, it's like, so you get performance, travel. You don't get to talk to loved ones much. It's a very tough situation.
Yeah, fans that I'm sure are like just really, really nice and cordial in all the away cities.
Yes. So when you get those comments in the 9th inning with 5 people in the stands, send them down to low A, it really stings a little more.
All right, Tyler, I'm going to ask you a series of just quick questions. All baseball related, not like some of the other questions that I know that people probably get from time to time, but all baseball related stuff. Just kind of some quick questions, quick hitter questions, then I'm going to let you go. To start off, who was, as a minor leaguer or a major leaguer, who was the best hitter that you ever pitched against?
I want to say it was T.J. Rivera. He's been my teammate for years, but in the Mets organization, whenever I faced him in spring training and whenever I was watching him and trying to break him down, I couldn't quite figure him out. He always had a very good approach, and he was always changing each pitch. So,
what level is he at right now? Do you know?
He is. I think he just signed with maybe the Phillies. I think he'd be in AAA. But He's a guy who didn't sign for much. Also, I love his story. And he's awesome, dude. It's just he didn't sign for much. And he was one of those guys who wasn't very important, but he always hit 330 and up every single year. So he always hit like mid 300s, couple homers, but always like barreled balls every single bat, which is amazing considering, the schedule and just how low of a round pick he was. Like, he always came and you knew what to expect from him, and never really had a bad day.
That's awesome. Those kind of guys tend to stick around for at least a little while. As a hitter, and I know you hit occasionally as a pitcher, but as a hitter, who is the best pitcher that you ever got to hit against?
Well, it had to be last year, I guess. That's the only year. Dustin May was good last year. Yeah, I'll say Dustin May.
Did you ever get to hit against any big names? Like, I know you would get occasional at-bats in the minor leagues, and you were a starter. Did you ever face any big names when you're in the minor leagues as a pitcher, like not an everyday hitter, but when you did get at-bats?
Yeah. Oh, so I got Zach Davies. Actually, I take that one back. Rich Hill was the toughest at-bat I ever had.
That was a left-on-left, huh?
Yeah, he threw me a bunch of curveballs too, because probably the scouting report probably said I can hit a little bit somewhere in there. So you're just like fastball, curveball. It was at least like 2 or 3 at-bats, the same exact thing. I stood no chance.
What's your favorite stadium to play in? Again, minor league or major league, just a stadium that you enjoyed going to as a player.
Hands down, PNC.
I'm a Pittsburgh fan, Pittsburgh guy, so I like that.
hands down, that skyline in right center is amazing. Obviously, my debut was there, so that's an added level of and then the bridge that you see in right center.
Yeah, Kamine
You
Bridge.
take that bridge, yeah, and you take that bridge to walk to and from the hotel.
That's
I
cool.
thought that
I
was super awesome. Yeah, really cool.
What was your favorite walk-up song as a player?
Ooh, I always had "Runnin'" David Dallas, which is not a too well-known song.
What made you pick that?
But
What made you pick that?
I don't know. I just had a good beat, and it worked as a hitter too because it had a little good build as I walked up to the plate. Keep the offensive mind as I was pitching.
Where is your number 56 jersey right now? Your Mets jersey?
It is in the closet. I've been trying to figure out a case for that thing. Cool.
How many gloves do you own right now?
Oof. Ew. I myself probably have 8 in my garage, and the amount that my parents have in their garage from my brother and I, or myself, probably in the 50s. There's so many years we've both played.
Who was the best manager that you had through your minor league career?
So I really liked Luis Rojas, who just got the New York Mets managing job.
Yeah.
And Bill Hasselman, who's with the Dodgers, not a manager anymore.
What level did you have him?
AAA in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
With the Dodgers. So those two are probably my favorite, for sure.
Okay.
Very player-oriented, never it was very just asked you how you, very personal and knew how to relate to certain situations that were going on and off the field.
Who was the first hitter that you faced in the major leagues? Do you remember?
Who was it?
Not a lot of big names in Pittsburgh, so that might be part of the issue.
Well, I know I hit McCutcheon right in the back. I think it was him, actually. I hit him straight in the back, first pitch.
First pitch in the big leagues, hit McCutcheon in the back.
Yeah, because those balls are so much smaller, seam-wise, so they're going to do a little bit different. And now, they got smarter, and they're using those in AAA, so guys are used to them while they, get called up. But in 17, it was completely different balls from AAA to big leagues. So if you get on the side of it on accident, that thing runs 30 inches. It just shoots off way to the right. Hit him square in the back. He stared me down. I was like, my bad. I'm new here. I don't know what I'm doing.
I can imagine you had a little bit of adrenaline pumping too at that time.
Yeah, and that was my first time relieving, believe it or not. First time relieving was my debut in PNC in extra innings, and the whole place was still packed, and they're all chanting, "Let's go Bucks!" And that was brutal. I was so nervous that day.
People probably don't realize that either. Just everybody, all you guys look so calm and cool and collected, making your big league debuts, and you see some guys that come in and just have really good debuts, and just it seems like the nerves aren't there, but I'm sure they've got to be. Do you remember who your first big league strikeout was?
Yes, it was Domingo Santana, and I remember that because I've also faced him a number of times in AAA the previous years.
That's a good name. A couple really good names. First hit by pitch, first strikeout. Did you keep the ball when you struck out for your first? Usually you keep the first pitch, but if you hit McCutcheon with that first pitch, did they keep that ball? Did you get to keep that one?
I don't think they gave me that one back.
Did you keep the ball from when you struck out Santana? You have your first big league strikeout ball?
I do. Yes, I think I have 3 balls. One's debut, first start, and first strikeout.
Very cool. Last question. When you got called up, you spent a decent amount of time in the big leagues that first year, between shuttling back and forth. Any major league guys from the Mets make an impression on you? Just take a little bit extra time just to kind of make you feel welcome on the team, in your time there.
So I knew a lot of them just over the years because I played with them, and I saw them either shoot by me or just get injured, and I just spent some time with them. Hands down, I think Jacob deGrom he's made me feel very welcome when I got there. So I'd played with him a couple years, and I don't know, he's just always very nice to me. I wanted to maybe he had some respect for me because I had to pay a little more attention to get guys out, and I guess respected that aspect of who I was on the mound. But he paid for my tickets for my family, so I guess people don't realize that either. So when a guy's in the big leagues or gets called up, at any point in time, when you have family come in and you pay for tickets or you put tickets for them, the player has to pay for the tax on the tickets. So you can see how that's a problem when a guy who finally gets called up has a boatload of names for people that want to come and see him play.
And you haven't got the paycheck yet.
Yeah, and that bill adds up really fast and gets really big. But, mine wasn't that big, and deGrom took care of it immediately the first day. And always, he would always joke with me too, which we had done in the past, and that made me feel comfortable and made me realize that it's just a different atmosphere that we're playing. It's nothing else, nothing different.
Very cool. Tyler Pill, everybody, former major leaguer, a Cal State Fullerton grad, a fourth-round draft pick, made his debut with the Mets in 2017. Tyler, it's been awesome talking to you. It's just been fun to kind of learn your perspective and learn a little bit more about minor league life and kind of things that you go through. I got a great perspective. I've really enjoyed the conversation and really very grateful for the time that you spent with Figured Out Baseball today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I always love talking, and I could just keep talking for days. But yeah, it's been really a pleasure being on your podcast.
Besides the podcast, guys, if you'll check out figuredoutbaseball.com, hundreds of videos from college and pro coaches trying to create an atmosphere, trying to create a website where young players and coaches can go and learn anything they want to learn. And these podcasts are just something that we do just because they're popular. People like them. And, Tyler, this is a really good one. I appreciate your time again, and I wish you the best of luck with whatever you end up doing. Best of luck to you and your family going forward.
Thank you very much. Best of luck to you and your family, too.
Thank you.